So let's get started. This week, we were focusing on collaboration for success. Our assignment was to review some things we had done earlier in this phase when we were talking about managing layoffs, how to communicate, and how to have some group discussions on the right things to do, some differing ideas, and how to successfully manage a situation like this. So I had a conversation with two coworkers of mine. I chose them very selectively. They're from completely different backgrounds than mine. Race, ethnicity, everything was different. The one thing that I would like to do next time is to get one more person, preferably a female, as both of the individuals that I spoke to were both males. So let me start off by summarizing the alternatives we were able to identify through our collaboration. So the first thing we discussed was what I had written about previously in phase one, and that was laying someone off based on performance. I still believe that this is probably the best way to go when it comes to legal things and ramifications in the future. This may be best for the company. Also, performance-based selections are taking the company's well-being into consideration rather than somebody's personal views. Another alternative we came up with was laying someone off due to tenure. So in the situation, there were some individuals that were there at the company for a few years, and the person that it was the most junior, or the rookie, we called him, was there for about 12 months. My thoughts on the tenure idea were that kind of goes based on a seniority deal. Having some experience in the last several years in the Air Force, we've kind of gotten away from looking at tenure and time, specifically time in service and time in grade, to create promotions. I went off of that to kind of even the playing field, making sure that the company is getting the people and getting rid of the people that don't perform as well as others. So the person that was there for 12 months may be performing, 50% better than the guy that's been there for about 3 or 4 years. Another thing we discussed was not laying off anyone and focusing on ways to increase productivity, whether that may be doing some training, doing some extra hours here and there, and adjusting the way that we were doing business. Maybe looking at some alternative business ventures to try to get into and some different clients to look at. The last thing that we all kind of shied away from was offering the option of pay cuts. Pay cuts really affect a lot of people differently. When you're considering people who work in Silicon Valley, they're out in California. California has one of the greatest cost of living expenses in the country. So cutting someone's pay in that kind of area is going to have a significant impact not only on them but on their family as well. If I could go back one more time to the not laying anyone off, this has worked in the past, and I'll explain in a little bit how I explained in phase 3 how this could really help us when it comes to getting everything on track, whether it's at the local community level, even just right in the company. It will bolster trust between the management, senior leaders, and the working employees. If we're trying to if they see that we're doing a lot of things to try to keep everybody and not lay anybody off, that bolsters a lot of trust for their job security. And that may even boost their productivity because they don't want it to come down to that absolute factor that we'd have to lay somebody off. So the next question was, what were your expectations of the collaboration experience? I was really expecting a lot of differing ideas, which I did get. One of the individuals that I spoke to when it was coming to who we were going to lay off, he mentioned things like, the whole trust factor, the idea of laying somebody off that isn't as close in relationship to everybody else, that may have not worked with everybody for a long time, and they may be considered, they may consider the whole buddy system when it comes to doing the layoff. Again, that was one of the things I expected that did come up. The other thing I expected was we all have different experiences, and because of that, we have different perspectives on this kind of situation and how to deal with it. The last expectation I thought was going to come up was the difference of personalities. Myself and the two other individuals that had this conversation really have differing personalities, and we got a lot of good feedback between each other because of those facts. Which brings me to the next question. What collaboration methods did you intend to use? I took from chapter 13 of Communication in the Real World, an Introduction to Communication Studies, version 1.0. This chapter was entitled Small Group Communication. One thing I got, they identified a small group as 3 or more. Luckily, that's what we use. We use 3 people. Again, like I mentioned before, I would like to use more and get a little bit different perspectives from a female next time. Especially as you've seen in the news lately, females in the work environment are really something that you need to look at when you start making decisions and everything. The second thing, this chapter defined feedback as positive, constructive, and relevant feedback to contribute to the group climate. This feedback was respected. We all respect each other, and I was expecting really great constructive and positive feedback, which I did get. Next question, were those methods actually used in your work with the group? Yes, we did use those things. We used mostly the feedback of understanding each other, listening to each other and what we were saying, trying to relate to their opinions, and giving positive criticism and everything in return. So it was a good debate. Next question was, do you think the methods you used were useful? Why or why not? Yes, I think they were absolutely useful. It kept the conversation from getting random off topic to having just 3 people. Like I said, possibly 4 next time. We'll still keep that under wraps. Once you start getting into 10, 15, even 20 people in a room, like a training setting or something, trying to have a conversation and a debate, it brings up a lot of differing ideas. A lot of good things can come out of it. However, having 20 opinions in one room that all differ and trying to sort all that out is not very constructive. So again, in that chapter, they did mention breaking larger groups into smaller groups. So I think we did take advantage of that idea. Next question, were you and your group able to professionally criticize each other's input? Yes, again, we have mutual respect for each other and for our opinions and ideas. We talked them out in a professional manner, and there were no arguments or anything to do with those kind of things. No disrespect, no dishonesty, anything like that, and no personal attacks. I've noticed in a lot of debates that I've seen either online or with the most recent political debates, a lot of people are going through it really turns to, they don't agree on ideas, but they don't respect each other's opinions, and they start personal attacks towards each other. There's no real room in a professional conversation for those kind of things. It doesn't have any good results, and all it really does is demean the good things that you've already discussed. So thankfully, we stayed away from that. Next thing, do you think professional criticism in a collaborative setting is helpful? Absolutely. Professional criticism is monumental in situations and discussions like this. If you can't talk to each other, share your opinions, and give feedback, whether it's a disagreement or an agreement, it really kind of becomes just sharing information and moving on. There's no real debate over the issue. So when it came to professional criticism, there were some things that some of us may have brought up that the others may have disagreed with for certain reasons. We cited those reasons, and that individual kind of saw things in a different perspective that he didn't really think of prior to. So that was definitely constructive. Next question, if you had the opportunity to redo this collaboration activity, would you choose someone else? Why or why not? No, I wouldn't change any. I wouldn't choose somebody else. What I would do again, like I've already mentioned, is get one more person that had uh, a gender difference. We took care of the race, the ethnicity, even the backgrounds of where we all grew up. I grew up out in the country. One of the guys grew up in a large suburban area, and the other one grew up in a very large city, in kind of a rough city, really. Um, and that gave a lot of different experiences. Those experiences gave a lot of different perspectives, and that was very constructive when it came to this discussion. Last question here: how will this activity have an effect upon future approach to collaboration? I'll definitely plan a little bit more. Like I said, this conversation it kind of got put together really quick. Thankfully, the people that I had in mind were available. But again, I would plan kind of more of an outline, kind of like some discussion bullets, some if then kind of things. I would definitely pull up a lot more information and statistics of how these things have been dealt with in Silicon Valley recently. Over the past couple decades, as you know, as technology and everything has just skyrocketed to on a parabolic curve that's just almost straight up right now. All these companies, all these startups and everything, some of them have an issue and some of them flourish. So I would definitely want to pull some statistics and information, some historical data on those kind of things in the future. Again, getting that one more female into the group would definitely be useful. So ultimately what we decided and the conclusion that we came to was that laying someone off due to performance is a great way to start. You also need to think about the way that the individuals work together. So if we're keeping somebody that doesn't get along with anybody else but has excellent performance, yeah, that can be good for the company at the moment. However, over time, the idea was brought up that could decrease the total productivity of the team due to that negative interaction that they're going to have with the team. So that's something to consider. Also, considering a lot of legal ramifications. As I said, the group that we were with was a completely racially diverse group. And they brought up the fact that, honestly, and as politically incorrect as it may sound, if there are 4 white guys on the team and 1 African-American individual, and that is the one that ends up being selected by performance reports for layoff, that could be seen as a racial decision, and that could cause a lot of legal problems for the company in the long run. So it's very important, again, that you have all your paperwork and your information all together. You need to really get some statistics and some real good hard evidence as to why this individual would be the one that was selected for your layoff. So that way it doesn't get too far. It doesn't cost the company a ton of money that they don't have, which actually put them in this kind of situation to begin with. So yes, I think performance reports or performance really came out to be the best way to decide who to lay off. The other thing, and the thing that ended up being changing my mind on the whole laying somebody off due to performance, was not laying anyone off at all. In phase 3, I referenced a whole chain of events that could turn that one layoff into a global problem for the company. I mentioned that, if you lay one person off or lay one person from this section and one person from another work section off, it could create an instability in the company to where certain other individuals are afraid that this layoff track is going to continue on. Therefore, they'll start looking for other jobs, they'll start looking for other things to do, and they may leave the company at an inopportune time. This would cause a severe decrease in productivity on the company level. And the community level, when you see all those layoffs and all those issues, they kind of start to question whether or not the things that you're deciding to do with the community are actually good-hearted. whether it's not just trying to smooth over the bad outlook that people are beginning to get because you're laying off so many people. On a more expanded view, this could cause some of your clients, whether it be local in the nation or all across the globe, to look at your company as something that isn't really reliable and isn't completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Isn't completely trustworthy. Trustworthy is a great word for it. So if they're trusting you to get a certain amount of work requests done, whether it be building some servers for them or setting up security, or even programming a new platform for them to keep track of all the product that they have going out. If they don't have trust in your company, you're not going to get any additional or any increase of work requests to increase your productivity. That could affect a lot of your stock prices. That could affect a lot with your company. What I didn't mention in phase 3 that I would like to highlight here is that when those things happen, a couple layoffs could turn into losing a bunch of people. That could eventually turn into, as I mentioned, just the entire company just going down the hill, getting bought out by a different company and sold off piece by piece. And that would cause every employee in your company to possibly lose their job, which, again, going back to the community, now you have an entire community of people that live near your work center that are now unemployed. That has a large ramification on the economy as a whole. So in conclusion, I really think that not laying anybody off, and this is a differing perspective than I had in phase 1, I think that not laying anybody off, focusing on productivity, focusing on training, and taking a little more time to increase your productivity and thus increase the your client's outlook on the company, you may get more work out of it. I think it's a very good possibility you're going to get a lot more work requests out of it and thus generate a lot more revenue. So I really think retraining and focusing on productivity is the best way to go, and not laying anybody off at first. You may come down to it, and that's an unfortunate last alternative, but like I said, leaving your people and training them up well is probably the best way to go. So thank you for bearing with me here for about 15 minutes. I hope you got some good information out of that, some good perspectives on not only collaboration, but how to manage certain tough financial situations in a supervisory role within a company. I also want to thank our professor for allowing us to do this video feedback and video discussion on a reaction to these projects. I've never done this in a lot of time that I've had in college and 5 years before, in a bunch of training in the military and everything. So I'm really appreciative that I can sit here and have a conversation and think through my thoughts and put them out verbally rather than written. I feel I can get a lot more information out, and a lot more thought process can be revealed through this kind of setting. So thank you all for a great class. The last 6 weeks has definitely taught me some things that I didn't really expect to learn. Thank you again, and I look forward to hearing back from you.